Well, hello again. Thank you very much for joining the Alan Hudson podcast. It's great to have you along with us. We've got another top guest joining us today. As you can see, it's former Chelsea, Fulham star Ray Lewington, who also had a great managerial career beyond his playing career. Um, Eventually ended up spending lots of time at Fulham and Crystal Palace, and probably the highlight of his career was being number two to Roy Hodgson as at England level. But before we say hello to Ray, Alan's got a few messages about subscription, so I'll hand it over to Alan.
Well, only one message. That's to just go into Google and put your name in and subscribe to us. And obviously, we can do more of these and get people like my mate Ray on and whoever. So if you subscribe, I'm only know how to do this because I've been watching politicians do it. So only there's no lies on this program. So this is an honest podcast.
Well, Ray, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us, mate. It's great to have you on. You're looking very well.
I'm feeling good. Yeah, I've just had a knee replacement, which is actually starting to turn now. It's getting a lot easier, but for the first 4 weeks, it's pretty brutal. So coming out of it now, so I'm beginning to be able to do things like drive and walk about a little bit better, going up and down stairs, which is that. So I'm on the road now.
And you're providing evidence.
Same boat, mate. We're in the same boat. I had surgery after about 4 months of waiting, and I've just got over mine. I'm just started doing exactly the same thing, walking, but not driving.
Yeah,
I'm not
at that stage now. I only got the go ahead last week after 7 weeks, so it's okay. It's perfectly all right to drive, and it's feeling a lot better now. Feeling a bit more normal.
Good, mate.
Right.
Good.
Well, Ray, can we? I mean, being a big Chelsea fan that I am, we've got to go back to the very beginning. Your early days as an apprentice at Chelsea, and your first few games at the Bridge in the mid-70s. Take us back to almost 50 years ago now, I suppose it was.
I know, it's frightening, really, isn't it, when you look back? Well, I mean, firstly, my lot, as we call us, the ones that got the promotion that year, really were the reason we got in was because of Alan's lot. Were all sold. I mean, being an apprentice behind the team that Alan was in was frightening, really, because they were such good players. They were, far better than us in what would be now the Premier League, and all these fantastic players who were only mid-20s. We had no chance of getting in. The only one amongst the group who we felt might break in at some stage would be Ray Wilkins, but even then that was in doubt because Chelsea had such a strong midfield and a strong team that we all really had resigned ourselves that we're going to have to go on loan out to other clubs. And then of course they built the stand, which was, in terms of timing, was absolutely disastrous because all the strikes were going on. And cut a long story short, Chelsea slowly began to go skint. Had to sell their best players, including Alan, Ozzy, everyone, and they had such a great team, and it was broken up. So in the space of really thinking we got absolutely no chance and our future would lie elsewhere, suddenly with all the boys that were currently in the first team being sold off, slowly drip feeding, my group started to come in and get a chance. But by then the club had gone down. And it looked a bleak future, actually. Untried youngsters, the big stand still had to be paid for. There was no money to bring players in. So it was all doom and gloom. But of course, we come in and had a really good second season when we managed to get up, which brought a little bit of financing and steadied the ship for a little while.
Would you put all that all down to Eddie, Ray?
No, I think he did really well with us, Al, in as much that he got us together and he made us really. We knew what we were, But
Sorry, Ray, just for anyone who doesn't know, we're talking about Eddie McCready now.
Ed McCready, yeah, he became manager, and Ed really just, I mean, he had no choice. He had to sling us in. There was you couldn't go outside of that. So I think what his ploy was that he was going to build us up into something that we're not. And we were very happy to believe him that we were all really good players and we get in together and we do this, that, and the other. So I think he got us all working together. But really, we were a team anyway, because we'd been the year before when Alan was there and the boys. We were the reserves then. Apart from a few, we were the reserves team. So we literally went from the youth team into the reserve team, thinking we'd all disappear then and go to other clubs. And then suddenly, with the boys going, went straight into the first team and all got our opportunity basically at the same time. Within a year of all of us had made our debuts at some stage, purely because the players above us were being sold, all the time. Everyone, virtually one was going every week. So we got our chance. So Eddie had an impossible job, but in a way, he did a really good job because he got us all together and we managed to get some minimal success, get us out of the division anyway to go up. That was
When you think, Ray, it's looking at the big picture for me anyway. I look here and I do a lot of writing and what have you, and it was kind of a disaster waiting to happen. Ozzy and Dave were always. It was a matter of time before they really threw a punch at each other.
Yeah,
they had so many fallings out, and it was all because. I mean, have you seen the interview when Dave Sexton talks about Ozzy and he says how disgusted he is with him?
No, never seen that.
It's amazing, mate. I can't believe he would come out and do something like that. And it was all like a cover up. It was a cover up for him selling Ozzy,
Right.
And it all started around 71, 72. And it was always something to do with Stoke as well. Amazing. They beat us in the League Cup. And then we played another game in the League Cup at Stoke. And Dennis Smith, who was in the side when I went there, he scored the winner. And Ozzy got the blame for that as well. Every time a centre-half scored at the other end, Ozzy got the blame.
Did he?
Right. It was unbelievable. And it was just something really waiting to happen. And that kicked off that night, and Ozzy threw all his gear and he up and went in the shower and he disappeared into the night air. And we come off the field, we lost 1-0. That because he took him off and he walked away. And I remember we walked out into the ground at Stoke, and I called a cab driver because I know where we usually go. And we get in the cab, and I said to the cab driver, "Have you picked up a certain Osgood, Peter Osgood?" So he went, "He's a talk of the taxi rank." He said, "Everyone's phoning," because they were all English at that time, all the cab drivers. He said, "Yeah, he's up the place," which was the place to go. And I walked in there and he had a bottle of champagne. Can you remember Johnny Fennell?
No, don't remember him.
He played in an amateur cup final, and actually Perry Digweed's uncle, Billy Digweed.
Right. Yeah.
They played in the amateur cup final for Hounslow. So, and John was a good player, and he was a bit of a, white boy. He could have a fight as well. And he was standing in the place, and him and Ozzy was standing in the corner drinking champagne as if we'd won something. When it was a disaster, and we knew then that something was going to happen. And
that was the end. Yeah.
I don't know for you lads, you wouldn't have seen that, but that's what was going on. And then the day happened when he dropped me and Ozzy, and that was it. He just said what he didn't call me and Ozzy on the training field that day. He said, "Osgood, you're off." He says, he said to me, he says, "I've been trying to get rid of you for ages. Nobody wants you." So I walked away. I walked away with what. So I said, "Come on, Oz, I'll take you to Fulham Skirt. I know this pub," and that's how it all started.
Yeah.
And they tried to blame it onto me and Oz when they really needed the money to pay for the stand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
As
I mean,
you know.
it must have broke your heart to see that team break up as it did, you know, suddenly, because you'd won the cup final and 70 when it the European Cup Winners' Cup year
Yeah.
after. I mean, it was only a matter of time. We all felt it was only a matter of time as apprentices and young pros in you know, just behind it. It was only a matter of time before we were going to win the league. You know, we thought we'd win what was then the first division. But then it all just disappeared so much, you know, so quickly. Must have broke your heart from your standpoint. For us, it was
What broke my heart more than anything was having to sell my house in Wimbledon.
Oh,
Yeah, well, it's worth $1.5 million now, and I'm here in a Chelsea council flat. But that's the repercussions of it all, you know. But on the football side of it, it done me a favour to get away from Chelsea at that time because it was chaos.
Yeah.
And Dave, I knew Dave and Brian Mears was up to something, and that was what it was. They were plotting to sell the two players that would bring in the most money.
Yeah.
Because at that time, Charlie was a little bit over the top at that time. He'd been the incredible player, there's no doubt. But when he first came to the Bridge, I'm sure he only 2 or 3, 4 years younger than me. I mean, it was an amazing signing, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You had some good players, didn't you? I mean, you had some brilliant players. But, you know.
Right. Can just remind us of some of those apprentice and reserve team players that you came through the system with that eventually got together again in the first team.
Yeah, Ray Wilkins was leader of the pack. Obviously, he was the star of the show, and had been Ray and I had joined on exactly the same day as 10-year-olds, and you know, went all the way through to apprentice and everything. But in our group, you had Steve Wicks. Amazingly, Steve ended up becoming quite an accomplished centre back. He started off as a centre forward, and just by fluke got put back into the centre back role one day because of injuries, and never looked back, and ended up playing quite a few games in the Premier League. So you had people like Steve Finiston, who was just a slightly bit older than us, but again was in the reserves. Gary Stanley, Ian Britton, who had sort of broke in. I don't know if he actually played in your side, Al, but Ian
he did, Ray. Yeah, he did.
He did, yeah. He just got in, didn't he? So Ian, little Brit, sadly, no longer with us, as is Ray, of course. They're not with us no more. So you had them two, and then you had Clive Walker, who was in my group, John Sparrow. John actually was a really good player. Injuries done him. I thought John might be even better than Ray. At 15, 16, John was considered one of the best left backs in the country. And then he had loads of injuries, and it all went wrong. And by the time he was 18, 19, although he got into the side and played, he didn't really go to where I thought he was going to go. But he was a great player. He was. So that was the main crux of it, you know, along with Gary Locke, who was not much older, but he'd played with Alan and all them. He'd already got in. So who else was there? There was Kenny Swain. Ken was a little bit older than us, but he was in our group, if you like, because he got bought from a university side, and he got brought in. So there was that was our main group. Gary Stanley, people like that.
Tell me a bit about the players, the sort of more experienced players that straddled both Alan's era and yours. People like Peter Bonetti, Mickey Joy. What sort of influence were they on those young players that you came through the system with?
Well, they had to be massive, because really this was a unique situation where the majority of the team were wet behind the ears. We had, you know, virtually no appearances behind us. We were just put in. So, you know, we had Pete. Pete was very good, actually. Mick, Ron Harris was still there then, although he didn't play a great deal, always in the squad and playing. So Ron was there. Charlie had come back. Charlie had gone and come back and played with us, and he was good. Charlie, he was good for us, because he, you know, slapped us down when we needed it, and Bruce picked us up. He was all right, Charlie. All the lads loved him as well. He'd go through phases where he'd come in, he'd be buying clothes from the junk shop, coming in coats 2 sizes too big for him, and then he'd go all the other way and come in suits and things. I mean, you didn't know what to expect from Charlie, but he was really good. So then they were the main ones that were sort of the leftovers from the really good team that had gone. But they had a big job to do, because, as I say, we were wet behind the ears. We probably hadn't had 50 appearances between us, so the whole lot of us. So it needed steadying, apart from the manager trying to do it as well.
I suppose the late great Ian Hutchinson as well would have straddled both eras, wouldn't he?
Actually, for a little while, not very much, and actually weren't very well a lot at the time as well. He was suffering a little bit. So Hutch was there, yeah. But didn't play as much, but it was around at the time, and then he became commercial manager, and so he used to shout at us from the stand, from his box down on the pitch when we were training there on a Friday. So yeah, it was great.
But I always had the opinion. I always felt that your as you call them, your group, they had possibly were a lot closer than our group.
Yes.
You had a. I've seen you lot out together, and you get on so well. Where we were dribs and drabs.
I admit, Al, I don't think footballers really stay with each other. I think that because you move around, one minute you're in London, next you're up in Stoke, in your case, and you end up going all over, and you make new friends all the time. Very rarely do you have football friends who stay the course, even when you move away, that you still keep in touch. And we were unique. I think it was because we knew each other at 15, 16, and we come through the youth team, come through the reserves, and then got this incredible opportunity when none of us felt that we weren't going to get it, and actually played in the first team together and had a little bit of success with promotion. I think that it bonded really well, and was lucky that we had a fella called Mark Westwood, who you probably know, Al. He did a good job of making sure that we all knew about each other. He was like the link, and at the end of the season, he'd always get either a vets game where we'd all turn up, not all of us could play, or just a get together in a pub where we'd meet up for the day, and everyone would come down and we say hello, and it was brilliant. He kept the group together, but we were genuinely good friends. I still am with all of them. I keep in touch loosely with most of them, because we're all dotted around different parts of the country. But it's the only group of footballers that I still keep in touch with. We're going back to 16 years old, really, 16, 17. So it's good. Nice.
It's the great story. Exactly what you're talking about, Ray. Is I see a show one night, and I was friends with both of them, of Jimmy Greaves and Bobby Moore.
Yeah.
And when they were in the World Cup squad, it broke Jimmy's heart. He didn't play in '66, and I don't know whether he would have played in '70 had he continued. I bet, but that broke his heart. I think that sent him on the way to his drinking problems.
Yeah.
Although he said it isn't, I can't think of anything else. But when they were together, the show was called. If you look up, I think it's when Jimmy met Bobby, or when Bobby met Jimmy.
Right.
And they said to one another, Jimmy was at Spurs, Bobby was at West Ham, and they said, wherever we go on a Saturday, wherever we play, anywhere in England, we'll meet up over the East End in a certain pub Saturday night with our wives, definitely. And that become the most unique situation. Exactly what you're talking about. You split up. You can have a best roommate, can't you? Like at Stoke, I was with Jeff Sammons, and overnight you're gone.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Believable.
I was lucky. Ray Wilkins was my mucker. I mean, he was my best mate, because we literally joined on the same night when we were 10-year-olds, and we got put together because we were the two short asses, and So we were put together, and Ray and I, we were really close, way up to. In fact, when I become Fulham player manager, and Ray got his move to AC Milan, and Ray was phoning me twice a week from Italy, and I had massive problems at Fulham because there was no money, and we didn't have players' boots, we didn't have players anything, we didn't have anything. We were struggling with the kit. No one would give us any money, with no sponsorship. It was really low. And Ray actually, from Italy, he got his sponsors involved for a page in the Fulham programme, which probably we was only playing in front of 4,000, 5,000 people in them days. For a page in there, his sponsors kitted the whole of the club out with boots, with New Balance boots, and the kit. I can't remember what the playing kit was, and really was saved my bacon, but certainly, it helped Fulham to survive that year. But it was only because of our friendship, really, that I got that. So, it was great, and all through. And then we ended up working together. But it was great. That group, is still quite tight. It's amazing. So it's good. It's good to do it. I remember Jimmy Greaves and Bobby Moore. I think it was like the big match on a Sunday. One of the opening sequences when the music was playing was Bob and Jimmy.
I know what you're going to do, yeah.
They put the arms in between you, do a little jig round, and then carry on playing. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, they were two. Apart from being two of the greatest ever players, they were two great people off the field. But going back, Ray, who was your first manager at Fulham when you went as coach? You
as coach,
played there.
The first one as coach. As a player, when I played at Fulham.
Yeah, when you played, you went there from Chelsea, yeah.
Yeah, it was Bobby Campbell was manager.
Right. Okay.
Mick Kelly was the assistant manager. Two of the most volatile people that you've ever come across. Bob was incredible. I'll tell you a story, absolutely true. I signed in the March on deadline day, and really I got injured shortly afterwards with my knee, so I wasn't around the place all the time. So when we went out pre-season, we went to Sweden, and I got to know everyone quite well then, including the manager Bob. And Bob always sort of, this boy can tackle. We used to tell the rest of the group, this boy can tackle. Anyway, we on this particular tour, we went to Sweden. We played the game, and then we'd have to get on the bus afterwards, and then we'd travel to the next place that we played directly afterwards. Well, in this particular game, I've cut my ankle. It needed stitching, 4 or 5 stitches. So because we're leaving straight afterwards, he gets the physio to come over, and he says, I want him stitched. He said, forget about the game. I want him stitched so that when we come in and we shower, we can get going. So we go in. Well, in them days, the physios, they didn't have anaesthetic or anything. He's searching around in his bag, this Ron Waldo, searching around his bag. I said, what are you looking for? He said, I'm looking for the needle. He gets his dirty old needle, which he wipes on his sleeve. So he goes, anyway, no anaesthetic, no nothing. So I said, Ron, you're not stitching me with no anaesthetic, mate. I'll tell you now. And he went, no, don't worry, I'll do it. Anyway, so I'm laying down, and I've got the pillow over me, and I go on. Anyway, I think he stitched me. He's kept going in. Anyway, at the end of it, he went, I've not been able to put one stitch in. So I said, you're joking. Anyway, by now, the final whistle goes, Bobby Campbell walks in, and he went, is he stitched? He said, no, I can't stitch him. Why not? He said, I can't get the needle in. So he said, he goes out. I knew something was up. I actually went to school with a fella called Teddy Maybank, who's a bit of a character, and he was playing that day. So all of a sudden, Bob went out, and Ted came back in, and he went, all right, Ray? So I said, yeah. I said, he can't stitch the bloody thing. So he went, and all of a sudden, he's got hold of me, and he's pinned me down. All of the rest of the team have come in, held me down, and Bobby Campbell stitched me. Put in 5 stitches. They're the worst stitches you've ever seen. They were about an inch away from the actual cut. And he put 5 stitches in me, and he went, good. And he said, oh, I remember, he went, listen, I'm wriggling about, I'm trying to get them off, and they're still holding me down. And he said, we can either do this the easy way or the hard way. He went, you keep wriggling. He said, I'm going to stitch you whatever happens. He said, you're not coming out of here unstitched. And he put 5 stitches in me. So it was a bit there. You sort of get a flavour of what Bob was like. I mean, he would come in. All the old stories about the old managers, Bob sort of fell into that category. He would literally come in and get you by the throat, and like it just bang your head against it, and you know you got so used to it in the end, it was almost second nature. But the worst thing was with them that they didn't have a good cop and a bad cop. Mick Kelly was as ferocious as Bob was. So if Bob didn't get you by the neck, then Mick would come in and get you. So it was great. But Bob was
I think you got to think yourself very lucky, mate. You weren't your eye.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you're right. He'd have stitched your whole eye together.
Bobby Campbell was a really good coach, and Mick Kelly was, to be fair. They were really good coaches. Bob in particular, you know, he's one of the better ones. Yeah, he was really good. So and you couldn't help but like Bob, even though he was like he'd come in, but you know he was fully committed to everything, and you know he's sadly not with us no more as well.
And he went on to become good friends with Abramovich, yeah?
Yes, he did. He did. I remember going to Wembley once to watch a playoff game when I was manager of Fulham, and he shouted from me from above at Wembley. And he said, come up here. And I went up, and he had Abramovich's box at Wembley, which was a double box, just him in there. He had enough sandwiches and fruit to feed about 20 or 30 people. And he said, come and help yourself. And he had it for the game, just himself being in, watch the game together. But in his box, but he was very, very close to Abramovich.
Yeah.
Everything, yeah. Yeah, he did. Yeah, and he eventually became manager of Chelsea, Bob, for a little while. Yeah.
I used to see him a lot in the King's Road, because he lived near my old school there. But after Bobby, how long was you at Fulham, Ray? There a long time, weren't you, coach?
Yeah, I was there. I was there as a player for 5 years. Then I left. To Sheffield United, funny enough. It's the only time I've ever gone really outside London. And then I come back as player manager for another 5 years. And then when I went away, that time, Chris Coleman is manager now. And I coached Chris at Crystal Palace. And we always got on really well together. And by now I'd gone to Watford with Ray Wilkins. And I got the sack there for the first time I've been sacked, and I was out of work, and Chris Coleman was manager of Fulham, and he said, look, I've got no job for you, Ray. He said, but I want you can come in. He said, have a look at the reserve team and the youth team, do some sessions. He said, I've got 2 coaches that it's their first job, Billy McKinley, who's now West Ham man, and Paul Clements, who went on to be assistant manager at Chelsea and Real Madrid and all that. It was their first year in the job as reserve team manager and youth team manager. He said, basically, I want you to keep an eye on their coaching, perhaps take a few sessions for them, and blah, 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 which was brilliant, really. And he said, listen, when you get an offer, you can go. He said, there's no problem. He said, but, you know, while you're unemployed, I'd like to employ you. And so that started really my last time at Fulham, which was 7 years. And that's when Roy Hodgson came in. He came in after 2 or 3 years. Chris had gone, and then Roy came in, and I was still doing the thing with the kids and everything. And he said, "Would you want to come up and help me?" So I went up, and that's how it started with Roy.
Your connection with Fulham is quite incredible, isn't it?
17 years, Al. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. When you think you had obviously you and the lads, I know how to feel. You had a love affair with Chelsea, and that's how it all began.
Yeah.
To go there at 10 is quite incredible. I can't imagine my father sending me there when I was 10. No way. But that's incredible. But I think somewhere along the way, I was thinking about it earlier on. You know, you're the perfect example of loyalty paying off. You know, Roy coming along and getting the England job, and you going with him was kind of a pat on the back for thanks for everything. You know, when you talk about Fulham were in bigger 10 times more trouble than Chelsea. At least they had training kit. You know, but you know, but it's a fantastic story, and it's always. One thing I love about you always kept your feet on the floor, and it's, you know, I see a lot of ex-footballers out, and I don't particularly like them. You know, I think there's something that they're not.
I agree. I think
and
there's too many.
Yeah. And how did you feel after doing all that, and then now you're coaching England, the best players in England?
Well, it was unbelievable, really. Roy phoned me up and just said, by then, Roy had actually gone to, and Fulham wouldn't let me go. Fayad wouldn't let me go. He said to me, "Look, you've got a job for life here, but you're not going. You're not going with Roy." And Roy had gone, and was actually with West Brom at the time. And he phoned me. He wanted me to go to West Brom, and Fulham said no. And then he phoned me and said, "Listen, you have to keep this secret." He said, "But I'm going to try and get you out." He said, "I've got the England job." He said, "But no one knows, so you have to keep this secret." So I said, "Well, you know, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to?" Because it was going to be, the appointment was going to be made, you know, weeks and weeks ahead. So he said, "If it gets out, then it won't happen." So I went to Fulham and said, "Look, you know, I think I've got an opportunity coming up. I desperately want to go." And they were saying, you know, well, basically, chairman wouldn't want you to go. So we managed to work that out, and I left with, you know, to go with Roy. And amazing, really. I've gone from really not even having a job at Fulham, but being at Fulham, and then suddenly I'm with the coaching. But Roy always had a lot of faith in me with the coaching. I'm from the coaching side, so it was a dream come true. The one thing that you get, Al, when you get there, you probably know, you was in England squads, is that the thing that really to me was that how little time you had with the players. You had 2 weeks, but you had 2 matches in between. There was travelling in between. You actually didn't get out on the training field that much. Probably out of the 2 weeks, you probably had 4 days where if you wanted to do anything that was of any consequence, you've got 4 days to put it in, you know, get a team shape the way you want it, and etc. etc. So it was great, but it was a great honour. I think it was at a time when England was in transition. We had some good players, but the players, it was at the time when Ferdinand and John Terry were just coming to the end of their careers. Lampard was coming to the end of his career. Stevie G was coming towards his end of his career, but he was still a really good player, Steve. He you know, even though he was 31, 32, he was an incredibly good player. I didn't realise how good Steve was until I worked with him. So he was good, but all the rest that were coming through, they were sort of getting to the end, and we were putting some youngsters in that, frankly, weren't probably there at the time, and it was a rocky time. You know, we had it was good. It was absolutely brilliant, but you know, we ended up losing to Iceland, which will never try. You know, just the fact that you've been a part of that is that brings you down to earth.
In all fairness, right, they weren't a bad side, were they?
Well, they had lots of Premier League players in the side.
Iceland.
And they did a great job on us. They went as soon as they went 2-1 up. We actually went 1-0 up, and then they come back 2-1 from set pieces, which we practiced against, and you know, it didn't work, and it was 2-1 down, and then they just put 6 at the back and 4 in midfield, no one up front, and we just got worse and worse and worse. And just sitting there sometimes on the side, you feel that you can affect it. I mean, you make substitutions, you might make positional changes, but when you're playing against a brick wall, it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Of course, you you're looking at the clock thinking, 15 minutes left, 10 minutes left, and disaster is happening in front of your eyes. But I wouldn't have swapped it for anything, Al. I wouldn't have swapped it. It was a great experience, so I wouldn't have swapped it.
Brilliant, mate. Brilliant.
Who was in your time at England, Ray? Who would you say was the best player you came across at international level?
Stevie G. I think from England's point of view, we played against some terrific players. Honestly, the technical players from Spain and places like that, Brazil. We played Brazil twice. We actually played them 3 times and we beat them twice and drew them, but friendlies. With the Brazilians, they go out and when it's a friendly, they show you all their tricks. When you see them play for real, then they're a little bit more, they've got another side to them. So you don't get carried away when you beat Brazil in a friendly. But we come up against some wonderful, wonderful players. The best in the world. But the one person I was always Steve Gerrard was an incredibly good player. Just take all the hype away about all the others, and because there were some players that a lot of hype about them, but actually when you work with them were a little slightly disappointing. I won't name names, but
yeah,
Stevie G was everything and more that you thought he was. I mean, he could play anywhere. He could play anywhere. I think he's probably. I think it's sad that Steve never won a World Cup medal. He was such a good player. Like he was, like Al. Incredibly good player, but didn't get what he deserved really.
Yeah.
And
can I just ask you that the players you said were disappointing? Were they disappointing with their attitude, you mean, or were their footballing levels not quite good enough?
Yeah, I think we were in a thing where we were playing players who probably at the start of their career, because the FA's thing was, look, we've had this golden generation of Scholes and thing, and they'd all sort of got too old, and the FA said, look, we just want to start again, so bring the younger ones in, and some of the younger ones, they went on to be 4 or 5 years later, they're household names, but at the time weren't quite there, and we, but you had to see the longer game really. We were putting them in so that they get experience, and hopefully in 2 or 3 years' time would. And a lot of them did become very, very good players. But at the time, in the middle of that was Steve, who was although he was coming towards the end of his career, was still an incredibly good player, trying to knit all this together, and it felt a little bit.
What the big talking point around them, Ray, was that Steve and Frank couldn't play together. Now I find that a little bit
rubbish.
Not hard to believe, but
it's rubbish, Al. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, it's all if you play them alongside each other as a two, maybe. But there are other systems to play. You can put another midfield player in, play them either side of them. Hey, presto! You let them go and play, do what they're good at, and have a sitting midfield player who just takes care of all the other business that they don't want to get involved in. So, I don't see that. I mean, I remember when because if you add Scholes into that, I remember Scholes playing left side of a 4 for England. He was trying to put round holes in round pegs into square holes. It was just, I don't think in them days there was the flexibility of systems where you could say, well, listen, we got 2 world class ball players there. We'll change the system. We won't play 4-4-2. But everyone was sort of only played 4-4-2 in them days and tried to fit them in. You look at the systems now, you can't tell what they are, but they managed to accommodate all ball playing players, and you just mix them up. You just mix the system up. Don't have to play 4-4-2 all the time. You try and play 4-4-2, then you are playing players out of position. Like Scholes and perhaps Frank and Stevie weren't the best as a pair, but they put them in a 3. And suddenly they become really good players with someone looking after the defensive side for them. I couldn't understand that.
No, it's quite interesting, really, when you think going back to Ramsey. And I mean, I played in some under-23 matches, and I spoke to him after matches. I couldn't really understand what he was talking about half the time. He would say things. I played one day at Wrexham. I'd been injured for Chelsea, and it was like a comeback game, and I played. It was my pitch. It was heavy, and I used it as a training session. And I come in after the game, and he said to me, "Alan," he says, "you don't have to work that hard, you know. You know, preserve your energy." And I went, I was going to say to him, "I do actually know this. I do know. We do know. We do know." But I didn't say nothing. I thought, what a weird thing to say to somebody. But I couldn't say to him, "Well, I'm using this as a training session because I want to get back in the Chelsea team," you know. And so it was, but exactly what you're talking about, square holes and whatever. Alf knew exactly what he wanted. That's why he disappointed, you know. God knows what would have happened if we'd have got beat against the Germans in '66. There would have been an uproar.
Yeah.
That Jimmy Greaves never played, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I was out one night in Everton, Everton, and I was having a drink at a bar with Tony Kay.
Yeah, remember him?
Well, Tony Kay was the one that was with Peter Swan and the centre Bronco Lane, I think it might be, in the three, you know, that's really, really going back. And he was getting on Tony, and he was nearly
Oh,
Son, we're breaking up here.
we can't quite. Alan, are you still there? Well,
he didn't do nothing wrong.
sorry, Alan,
was
hang on, we're having connection.
in for Littlewoods.
Alan,
I can see.
Oh, you're breaking up, mate.
Yeah.
You're breaking up. We're not hearing that. Just say that again, what you just said from the beginning.
What about Jimmy Greaves?
Well, we did. Ray and I didn't understand what you were saying. The connection was faulty.
It's coming through now.
I was saying about, you know, that was the most unbelievable day in football history, us winning the World Cup. But had it gone wrong, there would have been uproar.
Absolutely.
As to why Jimmy Greaves never played, and I think that was that was, you know, if you see the end of the match in 1966, every time I watch it, my eyes go on Jimmy Greaves. Everyone's jumping up and down, and Jimmy walks away into the background. It's like watching a movie, and you can see he was heartbroken, you know.
No, absolutely.
And he was the greatest player in the world, without a shadow. Greatest goal scorer, you know.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, brilliant.
Unbelievable. I think Chelsea fans possibly see the best of him. I watched him at Spurs, and I was lucky enough. In my real debut wasn't against Southampton when we lost 5-0, but my real debut was at White Hart Lane the following year. And I ran on the field at White Hart Lane, which became my favourite ground. And I just looked at Jimmy in his Spurs shirt, and I thought, tonight's the night, you know.
Yeah.
It was like playing in your own personal against, you know. And I always used to go up to wherever I see him, Ray, in any function anywhere, I always used to ask him for his autograph. And he'd say to me, "Not you again." And I'd say, and I was going with this girl once, years on, and I was there to do it at Olympia, and there was about 10 of the Chelsea players. There, players from all over, and signed autograph. And I was sitting next to Lester Piggott.
Oh.
Now, I turned around to Lester, and all he kept doing, Lester Piggott, was laughing at the banter that we were having, you know, because I was living in Stoke then, but my mates, people like John Dempsey, I love, Tommy Baldwin, you know, great, you know, you can't not love them, you know. And he was laughing because he struggles talking, don't he? And I said to him, and I went in my pocket and I got a £5 note out. fiver. I'm sure it's a fiver. And I asked, I'll give it to him with a pen to sign. So he signed on the bottom of this, and it was like Arabic. He couldn't write. It was like Arabic. And I said, thank you very much. And I said to this girl, we were going in for lunch, and she was from Stoke. We come back, and as we walked out, Jimmy Greaves is sitting there. And I went, my hero. He says, go away. I said, Jim, no, meet Trish here. And he met her. I said, and sign this £5 note for me. I got the greatest jockey ever, and I got the greatest goal scorer ever. And he swore at me. He told me to F off. He says, go away. He said, you're a genius. But we had this thing going, and he would never. He signed the thing, and someone else in the world is walking around with his £5 note with Jimmy Greaves and this Arabic leader on the bottom, because I stayed over. I was staying with my son Alan, and I pinned it. I thought I'm going to lose this £5 note. I'm going to spend it, so I pinned it on the wall one night. And he come home from work. I was down the pub, and he come in, and I come back, and the fiver was gone. I said, what's happened with that? He said, well, I come in. He says, I looked in the fridge. There was nothing in the fridge. So I went over, took the fiver, and when I go over, got a bottle of wine with it. Oh, no. So someone's walking around with my prized possession, you know. But Greavesy was one of the, you know, and it amazes, you know, it's something about Chelsea, you know, how they let him go, you know, to AC Milan, and it was criminal, really. And then he come back and what he did at Spurs, you know, and obviously, as I said to you earlier on, you know what the loyalty you showed, and you got paid for it, and it was great. I mean, your story is a great story for any young kid coming up, you know. And then you got the other side of the heartbreak of Jimmy, you know. Yeah. And I went, I very quickly, I went, when I was going with a girl in East London, I took her away to Jamaica for 3 weeks, all inclusive, and it was unbelievable. So I said to her this night, we'll go into town. And we got a cab, and we're driving along the road, and I always get in the front, talk to this cab driver, and I went, do you like football? And he went, yeah, man, yeah. So he said, I said, well, take me to a bar where there are people like you. And he said, yeah. He said, I must tell you. He says, a couple of years ago, I used to get a phone call from this bar every night about 4 o'clock, every morning about 4 o'clock in the morning, to pick up this fella and take him back to his hotel. And it was Jimmy Greaves.
Brilliant.
And Jimmy used to go, that was when he was at his lowest, I would imagine.
Oh,
and he used to go to where no one knew him, and he would sit in the bar all on his own. He was absolutely, that's what England, that's what Ramsey done to him. You know, yeah. It's amazing. All right, he won the World Cup, but it's a little bit like Brazil in it without Pele and Jairzinho, you know. It's yeah. But you know, we come through the same place. You never, the Welsh Harp was gone when you come through, wasn't it?
I actually trained at the Welsh Harp.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it must have been just as I joined, because it didn't, I think it was only that I only went there for 4 or 5 times, and then we moved over to Mitcham. But yeah, I did go there. I went to the Welsh Harp a couple of times. Yeah.
Did you play any games there?
Yeah, I did. We played some what was then under 12 games, I think they were. We played, but you weren't allowed to play as Chelsea. Amazing what it was like. So they used to call it. They used to just make up a name, which ended up there was a team called Semrab, who a lot of the Chelsea players played for, and Semrab was a Chelsea team. And I played for Semrab. Ray Wilkins played for Semrab. Johnny Sparrow played for Semrab. We all played for Semrab, but really, because you weren't, it was a Chelsea team, and but you weren't allowed.
But John Terry played for them, didn't he?
Yeah, John Terry played for Semrab.
Yeah.
There's loads. You'd be surprised. There's probably about 60, 70 names. You've even got people like Sol Campbell played for Semrab because he was going to go to Chelsea. But yeah, it's a well-known. So that's how we used to go. But one of the games I played at the White Hart was for a Chelsea team, not called Chelsea. Amazing what the rules were in them days.
Well, we've had Stevie Perryman on, and I keep in touch with Stevie. And in them days, it was all about. I don't know what it was the same with you. There was something that would go round the training grounds. Who's the best player at Chelsea? Who's the best player at Fulham? Jerry France at QPR, Stevie Perryman at Tottenham, Trevor Brooking at West Ham, blah, blah, blah. And I played against Stevie when he came on the show with me and Tony, and I asked him about the Welsh Sharp. And he went, the Welsh Sharp, he says, yeah. But I couldn't go any further with it because, sorry, Steve, but I think I nutmegged him twice in the first 10 minutes. But we're still, I mean, one of the loveliest people, and there's another one that, should have played for England and didn't,
I know Steve.
But,
he is a real star of a bloke, isn't
he? Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, Ray, it's been great taking a journey through your play and your managerial career. Before we wrap it up, can we just finish with the England side of things and look back at your time as England assistant to Roy? What was the standout moment in that time? Can you think of one game where you thought, wow, we've cracked it today?
But without doubt, it was the World Cup qualifier. We needed to beat Poland to go to Brazil. I mean, one thing I am lucky. Well, I've been lucky anyway in my life, but another huge bit of luck was when the World Cup was finally played in Brazil. I was there, it was unbelievable. So the fact that it was being held in Brazil and you got a chance to qualify, and we beat Poland 2-0 at Wembley, and that assured us of qualification, and that was unbelievable. I was on a high for weeks and weeks and weeks, just incredible. When we got there, we didn't do too much, to be honest. We got beat by Italy in the first game and Uruguay in the second game. And then the team that won the group was Costa Rica. Can you believe that? You had a group of 4, England, Italy, Uruguay and Costa Rica. Costa Rica won the group. But we drew with them but lost to the other 2. So it didn't last very long, but getting there was a huge plus. But so that was probably my high with England, the qualification. It was brilliant. And the saddest one was obviously was Iceland when we lost that, because we actually had played. I don't know what the paper. When we went away with England, we never used to look at any of the papers. Didn't have any television. Didn't have everything. You block it all off, because otherwise you get so involved in it. It's not pointless. You phone home every day and your wife's saying, "Oh, they're having a go." Don't tell me. I don't need to know. So you have to do that. But
yeah.
But you get a lot of stick. But that Iceland match, we actually thought we were playing well. I remember Paul Scholes saying to Gary that he said, "I think you've got a genuine chance," and so did we, because we were either going to play Iceland or Portugal in the quarter final, and we got Iceland. So everyone secretly was, wow, we got a great chance for semis, and we fancied ourselves, and then to lose to Iceland was about. I didn't go out for 3 months when I come up. I didn't go out. Honestly, I didn't go out. I just couldn't face anyone. I just
Really?
honestly, you asked my hand. I just said I can't go out. The doctor said to me when we were flying home, he said, "Listen," because he'd been on a lot of trips where they hadn't gone right, and he said, "Listen, you got to be sensible when you get home. People are angry." He said, "We're disappointed." He said, "But people get angry. particularly if they've had a few drinks and they see you walk in. He went, they're going to target you, mate. He said, so that, and he scared the life out of me. So when I
You had a good excuse, mate. You had a good excuse. You didn't play, did you?
Yeah. So
Well, very, very quickly, Ray, I must ask you, and I've never asked any of the coaches. I've never really got Don Howe. I used to love Don Howe.
Yeah.
How would you have approached? You've played against the Brazilians. You beat them.
Yeah.
How would you went about coaching them Brazilian players? Would it be any different from the English?
Oh yeah. I mean, with the flair that they got, the flair, the Brazilians and their movement and everything. They play a different game. Although in the Premier League now, you are getting styles that are veering towards their sort of style of football, where it's slow, then quick, and they play around you. You can see a little bit of pep sides in that, slow. They just slow it right down, and you almost feel that you're being sucked in. And then as soon as you do get sucked in, they play around you. Be very difficult to play against a real top Brazilian side. But you have to play to what your strengths are and what your squad are. At the same time, trying to nullify the opposition. So it's a difficult thing to do. But so I don't know how you'd go about it. When we played in the friendlies, we just said, there was no fear about it. We're just going to go and try and win. And we beat them twice and drew 2-2 in the third game. And we just went out, but we never met them in a tournament, and that's the real. Then if you ask me what I would do, I'd say I don't know. I really don't know. But if I'd experienced it's completely different from a friendly where you just say, go out and enjoy yourself and play and do that, and we'll take the consequences. If it's for a tournament, if it's in a tournament, in a quarter final or a group game, and your life depends on it, I don't know where I'd start, to be honest. Probably from the back.
Well, that's what happens when you're at the top of the tree, Ray.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a nice
great experience, mate.
It's a nice problem to have, but it's when you play these teams, if they're on song, then there's not a lot you can do about it. When you get these top players, the Brazilians and they're there, you can't. There's not a lot you can do about it. But it's brilliant to watch. They're brilliant to watch, aren't they? Absolutely brilliant.
And as you say, more than anything, it's a great experience, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
One short final question from me, Ray. After England, of course, you went back to Palace with Roy.
Yeah.
And you went back twice to Palace with Roy.
Yeah.
You left a couple of years ago now. Is that your coaching career done?
Yeah, it was done the first time we left Crystal Palace. Believe it or not, that I was determined that was going to be it. I've always, both my boys played, Dean lower division, Craig played non-league. And the one thing I've missed, is that I haven't really seen them grow up. Both were apprentices at the old Wimbledon. Dean went on to play 900 games for MK Dons, an incredible career. Craig had a really good non-league career and enjoyed his football. But I miss virtually all of it, of the two boys, and I really liked watching them play. But unfortunately, it always clashed with my job wherever I was. And that was the thing I really, really miss. So when we had a chance, I said to Roy, when we went to Crystal Palace, the contract was for 2 years. The chairman virtually said, in 2 years, we want to get a younger manager, blah, blah, blah. We said, fine, that suits us really good. So we did the 2 years. We did okay, because at the time, Palace were just about, making sure they don't go down. And we had 2 years, and then we left thinking that's it. And then they called us back in. If it hadn't have been for Palace, we probably wouldn't have gone. But we did go back, and we went in there and we did another stint. But we both agreed, Roy and I. We said, now, Roy's 10 years older than me. I'm 69. Roy's 79. And it becomes a little bit of not a chore, but it's hard. It's much harder. You know, physically you're not. You think you're as fit as you were, but you're not. You're nowhere near it. And you know, it was a little getting to a little bit. So when we had the Roy was not too well, and I said, listen, why don't we just call it a day, and we called it a day. So I'm absolutely sure if he got a chance, Roy would go back in actually, but it wouldn't be with me. I've had enough. I'm going to enjoy it because Dean only gave up playing at 41 last season. At the end of the season, he gave up. But he's coaching at MK Dons now, and my boy is manager of Cobham in the Step 5 team. And I enjoy watching his teams play. You know, I go down and watch Dean. He's got a little side now he's doing. So it's great. There's still an involvement with football, but not from the inside. So the way I like it.
My best mate at school, a little Jamaican boy, Billy Boyce. His grandson's at MK Dons.
Is
and
it?
he's doing very well. Yeah, he's
Right.
he's a white boy. He's a white boy because when Billy showed me a picture of him, I went, "But Bill," we went, "No, it's the way of the world, you know. It's the way of the world." So he's enjoying it at MK because I'm pretty well in it AFC, and I said, if you ever, you know, want to change over, you know, let me know.
Yeah.
But see, he's loving it. He's loving it there.
Yeah, there's a lot of rivalry there, though. They might not want an MK Dons player.
Well,
But my boy gets dogs abuse when he goes to AFC. Whenever he played AFC, he got dogs abuse because there was only two people that when it was Wimbledon that went to MK Dons. The only two people was the chairman and my boy. That's still there. So he's seen as Mr. MK Dons, my boy. So when he goes to AFC Wimbledon, they give him dogs abuse.
So you don't go with him?
I don't go nowhere near it, mate. You do that on your own.
Okay, Ray. Well, listen, we'll let you go now. I know you've got to go off to see one of your family members play, haven't you?
Yeah, watching Craig. He's playing at Chipstead today, so yeah, go and watch him play. Yeah, it's good to see you, Al. Really good to talk to you.
You, mate.
I've really enjoyed it. Great.
Well, we'll have another day out at Sutton, surely, wouldn't we?
Yeah, we will. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I'll work on that one, Ray.
Okay, son. We will do.
Great to see you.
All right, Al. Cheers, mate. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks a lot, Ray.
I love your story. I love your story as well. Great story.